Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Asian Astrologer podcast. I haven't done something like this where I was just talking to the camera or to the microphone in a very long time. And I really think it's because I have felt afraid of my voice. I have felt afraid to show up and be seen. But today is my 31st birthday. And it so happens to be a couple days after Venus has stationed retrograde in Aries. So I thought I would come on and chat a little bit about this Venus retrograde, what it means for us, how I've been doing, and yeah, this is just a little update on the cosmos and myself. So, Venus retrograde. First of all, I need to tell you about the astrology of March. Ever since I started doing year ahead readings, I have been both mesmerized and terrified of the astrology of March. So let me lay it out for you, okay? At the end of February, Mars, our planet of action, aggression, that kind of like warrior spirit and motivation, he finally stationed direct. This was the end of February, about February 24th. Okay. This means the entirety of 2025, in fact, all the way back to December 6th, 2024, has been colored by a Mars retrograde. Out of all the retrogrades, and by the way, retrogrades are when planets seem to be moving backwards in the sky. They're not actually moving backwards, but symbolically, it means that they are not functioning the way they normally do. And it has that adverse effect on us down on Earth, basically. So the planet of motivation has not been acting the way he normally has. Plus, he has been in Cancer, the sign of his fall. So it's kind of like, a warrior that's normally sure-footed and assertive on dry land has been wading through mud the past 2.5 months. Okay. So it's finally direct. We had about a week of leeway, and then bada bing, bada boom, Venus retrograde has started. So honestly, if you are still feeling out of it like I am all the way until basically April, that's totally normal and okay. And I needed to hear this as much as I needed to tell you this. But anyway, Mars, the masculine, now direct. Great. Still in Cancer, still in mud, but the mud's drying off. Okay, give him some time. But now Venus is retrograde. So let's talk about Venus retrograde. Venus is the planet of love, beauty, relationships, money. Depending on where this falls in your chart, it will be activating a different house, aka a different area of life for you. And I will talk about that maybe in the Substack post or later on. But the thing about Venus retrograde is she moves from the early degrees of Aries, so up till 10 degrees Aries, all the way back to the late degrees of Pisces. So all the way back to 24 degrees Pisces, which by the way is the exact degree of my natal Venus. Oh, okay. So 10 degrees Aries to 24 degrees Pisces. What does this mean? These are the both the most utmost beginning and utmost tail end degrees of the zodiac. Fundamentally, what this tells me is that we are really closing out a cycle somewhere in this area of our life, perhaps, so that we can make space for that new beginning. So it's kind of like Venus has gone forward and she's like, ooh, wait, there's still something we haven't really wrapped up back there. We haven't grieved properly. We haven't, really like integrated the lessons from that final degrees of the zodiac. So, okay, we got to go backsies. What is so fascinating to me is that in a couple of weeks, Mercury will also be stationing retrograde right around the similar degree range. Mercury is the planet of communication. Okay. So that means our thought processes will also be joining our values, our relationships, what we desire in this life, in this process of retrospection. At the same time, two outer planets will also be traversing these degrees: Saturn and Neptune. Neptune will be entering Aries for the first time in, I have no idea, like probably 150 years. It's insane. We have gotten so used to Neptune in Pisces for about the past 18 years. And right now, it's going to go forward into Aries. And same for Saturn. We have been in Saturn and Pisces, for the past since 2023. And now it's finally going to move forward into Aries. So all of this happening in this specific degree range, end of Pisces, early Aries, truly tells me that there is a story we are wrapping up with Mercury in the mix. This is saying, what is the story we are rewriting about this ending so that we can move forward? So, just intuitively speaking, I want you to now think about what are the endings that have happened or you are contemplating or are about to happen in your life in this context of Venus retrograde. And again, Venus retrograde is about knowing what you value, what you truly desire out of your life, and putting that in the context of Aries. Is this who I really am? Also, not forgetting, we just finished our eclipses in Aries and Libra. So we have had a master class in basically confronting and accepting who are we? What do we really want? Who am I? What is my identity? What do I stand for? And this Aries warrior spirit is being infused into Venus's journey into the underworld. So a quick kind of like not fairy tale, what's the term? Lore about Venus is that this is really similar to the allegory of Inanna, the goddess entering the underworld in Sumerian legend. So the goddess Inanna enters the underworld for 40 days and 40 nights, which happens to be the exact same amount of time that Venus will be retrograde. And as she enters the underworld, she sheds 7 layers of clothing. And with every layer that she, puts down, it is equivalent to what we are letting go of in our lives as well as we descend into the depths. I listened to this brilliant podcast by Jules Ferrari today, Golden Nature, and she said, this Venus retrograde, the best way to work with it is to give yourself expansiveness. What she means by that is, how when there are so many things not functioning the way they normally are, like I mentioned, just finished Mars retrograde, now is a Venus retrograde, soon to be Mercury retrograde. There's a lot of chaos in the air, a lot of drama, both internally and externally. I don't know about you. I have been feeling the weirdest sensation of just not being here, you know? I have never felt so lost in my life, especially with today being my birthday. There's almost like this unbearable sense of existential dread. Like, what is this all for? Like, why am I here? And I have to keep reminding myself, oh, yes, it's Venus retrograde. So we just finished Mars, right? Which was so disorienting for me. And now we are in Venus retrograde and we're starting to put kind of, a new layer of shedding into place, right? So we are not done with the transformation yet. Okay. So yeah, giving yourself that sense of expansiveness will give you the opportunity to sink inward and to gain that clarity. So just like how Inanna goes into the underworld, we too need to use this time. Mars is the best time to clear out the noise and go back within. It so happens to coincide with Pisces season, which is typically the end of the zodiacal year, right? So it's kind of like the December of the zodiacal year. We are in deep winter. It's the best time for us to, whenever we can, to choose that space that we can afford ourselves and to look at that space as a luxury, to not overfill our calendars, right? And to not push ourselves so hard. So Venus retrograde will show us what truly matters to us in relationship, in money, in love, in life. And then we will come to the middle of March, which is where there is a doozy of both a Mercury retrograde and eclipse season. So we are already almost there. If you're feeling weird, if like there are certain things on your mind already, that is probably very likely your eclipse narrative story that's unfolding. Okay. So like I mentioned, for the past 1.5 years, since about July 2023, we have had the nodes in Aries and Libra. We were learning to choose the sovereign me, over the people pleasing, harmony seeking we, in the sense of like where we let go of our identity and our sovereignty in order to keep the peace, right? And for those of you who don't know, it was under this eclipse cycle that I ended my 8-year relationship with Sean. And he's been on my mind a lot, to be very honest, during this whole Mars direct Venus retrograde shadow period. Like, especially with my birthday, like, this is my first birthday in 8 years that I'm celebrating without him, right? And it does bring up a lot of grief. It does bring up these feelings of like, who am I really? Like, what is my life now really? If I can let go of an 8-year relationship and just move on, and there are days that I'm sad, but more often than not, I'm not. And what does that say about me? What does that say about the relationship? What does that, you know what I mean? So like all these existential questions are coming up, and I am very much looking forward to the Venus Cazimi that is going to happen on March 23rd at about 2 degrees Aries. And this is where it is kind of like the midpoint of the Venus retrograde cycle, where she enters the heart of the sun to be reborn anew. And this is where normally clarity around whatever has been plaguing us about our relationships, style, money, beauty, all these things, gains some fortification, some clarification. And then we start to move forward. And then Venus goes from being an evening star to a morning star. And that is the transformation she's undergoing at this time. Just so you know, the last Venus retrograde cycle was in Leo, also in July 2023-ish. A lot was happening during that, August 2023, if I'm not wrong. So a lot was happening during that time. Anyway, so we will have eclipse season. We will have the graduating ceremony of the Aries, Libra eclipses, the graduating ceremony of that. The final one happening in Aries, a solar eclipse in Aries. This will be at the end of the month on like the 29th of March. And then we will have is it our first? No, we will have our second eclipse in the Virgo Pisces Virgo cycle, the second lunar eclipse. This will be the lunar eclipse in Virgo happening during that time. So I think definitely pay attention to what is coming up for you in these couple of weeks, and check in with me in the comments. Like, I would love to know how this is showing up for you, because when we think about eclipse season, retrogrades, all these things, people always ask me, Gwen, like, what is the relationship between free will and astrology, right? Like, is this all predetermined? Is this all written in the stars that we're fucked? And to be very honest, to me, the answer lies in your own internal agency. I love to use astrology as a tool for both looking back and looking forward, but it's to contextualize the quality of time that I'm in, as opposed to letting it dictate me. So, for example, if I was looking at Venus retrograde, for example, as a predetermination, right? And for me as a Cancer rising, it falls in my ninth house. I would say, oh, you know, I will not travel during this time because all travel is fucked. The ninth house rules international travel. All travel is fucked for me. There's no way that, this will go smoothly, so I'm not gonna do any of that. Like, if I was using that mindset for this, then it wouldn't really make sense, would it? Because you are literally giving all your power away. But let's say I did have an international trip planned during this time. I would use this knowledge of, Mercury retrograde, for example. Mercury rules transportation, to double check my details, to make sure like I have all my, my flight details and my check-in, like it's all scheduled and, like accounted for before embarking on the trip. Like I would do that already, but I would take extra precaution. So that to me is working with the quality of the time we're in, right? It really is like just looking at like a cosmic weather report. Like, if you know that it's going to rain, don't just say, oh, my life is screwed, right? It's going to rain. Why do I want to go out anyway? No, if you want to go out anyway and you know it's raining, bring a freaking umbrella, right? Like, so to me, this is the power of knowing what's going on astrologically and working with it. Okay. All right. This is getting really long already. So I want to quickly talk about briefly how we can best make use of this time that we have with Venus retrograde, Mars retrograde, and eclipse season during March. Okay. To me, the best way to work with this time is to be super conscious of what we are consuming and putting out during this time. Venus is very feminine receptive energy, right? So when it's retrograde, it's almost as though we are a lot more sensitive to what we are taking in. And like I said, between this degree range, right, of like end Pisces, early Aries, to me, this is like the most sensitive point of the zodiac because this is where everything ends and everything begins. So I want you to pay extra attention to what is percolating during this time. Are there any seeds of interest sprouting up within you? And obviously, to do this, you need to be in that state of expansiveness, as Jules said. You need to be maybe prioritizing some moments of solitude every day, strengthening your connection to self and spirit, right? So, whatever that might look like, it could be meditation. It could be waking up early to make yourself a tea or a coffee and sitting outside. It could be taking a walk in nature so you can look around you and, connect with what's, the universe at large. Whatever that you choose to do, be very intentional about, like I said, what you are consuming and what you are putting out in the world, both energetically and otherwise. For Mercury retrograde, the same thing applies. Just being extra cautious with your words, right? With the energy that you put out, with your with your with the energy that you put out with your communication, I would say anger might be a bigger deal right now because it's happening in Aries. So just again, being very conscious of that. And finally, eclipse season. These eclipses are teaching us a lot about the duality between trust and planning, right? How much how much surrender are we giving to the universe and how much are we also putting into place in our own lives to be able to hold whatever the universe gives us? So it's that dynamic between water and earth, right? Are you building the right containers in life to be able to support the kind of things you want to manifest in the unseen realm? So, for example, if I say I want $1 million, right? But I don't have any experience with money. I don't know how to handle that amount of cash, right? I don't invest. I don't, know how to do any of that. I don't have an accountant, Even if I manifested that, I would not have the capacity to hold that in this realm, in this physical realm. I was talking to my wonderful friend Joshua today. We had lunch for my birthday, And he told me there are three key things that we need to be able to co-create with the universe. And this is very different than being in flow with the universe. When I first started my astrology business, I was in flow with the universe, meaning the universe was guiding me on my path. And I was like, wee, like just like riding like a theme park ride, right? I was just going with the flow. But now I want to be an active participant in my the creation of my reality. And to do that, I need to be in co-creation with the universe, which means I have agency to decide the path I want to take. And I truly believe everything that's happening in March, Venus retrograde, Mars retrograde, um, eclipse season, all of this is transpiring to support us in that process of gaining clarity on what we want. So that in April, when all of that has ended, we can move forward with the clarity and with that certainty of like, this is what I want. Okay. So I hope this is helpful. I will likely be writing horoscopes for paid subscribers on what specifically will be activated for you during this whole degree range of Aries Pisces. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out my Substack. And if you're watching this from Substack, hi, I love you. Again, my name is Gwen, the Asian astrologer, and I'm so grateful to be here with you today. I wish you a very eye-opening March. And yeah, my books are open if you would like to explore this together. I am in the process of refining my offers, and I have faith that whatever clarity will come on the other side of this will be in alignment with how I would like to show up and continue serving all of you. So thank you. Love you. Bye.